Hi everyone, welcome back to the IT brand, where we discuss the intersection of celebrity, consumer goods, influence, and marketing. In each video, we deep dive into a celebrity-owned or backed brand. My name is Jen, and today we're going to talk about Gwen Stefani and her makeup brand Give, which has an X for the eye, which is meant to symbolize a kiss. And buckle in, or buckle up, I guess. This might be a long one. As always, the opinions in this video are mine, and if it's wrong, it's the internet's fault. So, Gwen Stefani. I think a lot of women my age really loved Stefani when she was the lead singer of No Doubt. And then also, when she embarked on her solo career, she's an OG confessional songwriter. Her lyrics felt vulnerable, sometimes subversive, and she was so beautiful. And she still is like breathtakingly beautiful today. She was funky, she was cool. And so she had a big fan base. Now, because Gwen Stefani has been so many people over the last decades, right? Like she's been this punk pop girl with blue hair. She had a bindi, the Harajuku Stephanie, the country star's wife, and now the religious kind of cultural conservative hawking prayer apps. Some might call her a chameleon. I have other thoughts on her shifting identities over the last couple of decades and how it relates to her makeup line Give, and we'll kind of get into those thoughts as we move through this video today. But before we get to the makeup, I do want to talk about Stefani, the woman. So Stefani was born in 1969 and grew up in Anaheim, California. She was raised Catholic and claims a pretty conservative upbringing. The world was first introduced to her as this very platinum-haired lead vocalist of the 90s punk pop band No Doubt. She was instrumental in their success as the face of the band and also the voice of the band. She wrote their hit songs like Just a Girl, Don't Speak, Spiderweb, all off their 1995 ska album Tragic Kingdom. Many of the songs were focused on Stefani's confusion and heartbreak after she and her fellow band member Tony ended their 7-year relationship. So after the band finished touring for Tragic Kingdom, again, their first album, Stefani began contributing vocals to tracks for lots of other bands like the Brian Setzer Orchestra, Prince, and then ultimately Gavin Rossdale, who ended up being, at the time, her boyfriend and then husband for his band, Bush. And so she was definitely the most well-known from No Doubt. Now, No Doubt released 5 albums between 95 and 2004, going on hiatus in 2004, which is the same year that Stefani launched her solo career with her album Love, Angel, Music, Baby. That album ultimately received positive reviews from critics. It has 6 Grammy nominations. It sold over 8 million records worldwide. So wildly successful by like any metric. One thing to pause on with that album is that Stefani has already put out an apparel line at that time under the same brand name, Lamb, LAMB, for again, Love, Angel, Music, Baby, which was founded in 2003, her apparel line was. Which made its runway debut in 2004. And many of the songs on Love, Angel, Music, Baby make direct reference to her clothing line. So there's definitely already some cross-promotion going on in Stefani's world. One review I read of the album described it as, quote, fun as hell, but not exactly rife with subversive social commentary. Stefani also released a fragrance line under the brand at this time with a total of 5 different fragrances based on the 4 Japanese women she went around with. And Stefani called the 5 fragrances Love, Lil Angel, Music, Baby, and G for Gwen. And in 2016, they launched a line of eyewear, which is the only thing actually that the brand still sells is eyewear. The clothing line, so the apparel line, it takes influence from a variety of fashions, including like Guatemalan, Japanese, Jamaican style. The line was quite popular among celebrities and worn by like Terry Hatcher, Nicole Kidman, Stefani herself. She also released a limited edition line of dolls called Love, Angel, Music, Baby fashion dolls. The dolls were inspired by the clothes that Stefani and the women that she had, I don't even know how to say this, and the women that she had in her entourage at the time while touring the album. We'll talk more about them in a minute. In 2006, we see Stefani's second solo album, The Sweet Escape, which coincided with the DVD release of her first solo, entitled Harajuku Lovers Live. Again, the reception for the album was fine, if not as welcoming as her first album. She was also a judge on American Idol to promote that album. Cut to 2011, where she says she has no more plans to continue work as a solo artist, though that later changed. In 2012, No Doubt put out their sixth studio album. They put out a couple of singles on the album. One of their music videos was pulled for imagery that was offensive to Native Americans. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And you can find it online. It features our kind of platinum-haired Stefani and her bandmates in various Native American costumes. It's a choice, and I would say not a good one. Overall, the critical reception, again, was kind of fine-ish for this album. The songs were catchy, but a lot of them were thought of as more like generic pop music rather than the more kind of subversive lyrics and songs that No Doubt had put out earlier. And the lyrics were often panned, and many kind of commented that the songs felt like filler. So soon after that, No Doubt went on hiatus again. In 2014, Stefani replaced Christina Aguilera on The Voice. In 2015, she and her husband of 13 years, Gavin Rossdale, announced a separation. They were divorced in 2016, and during the separation, she became romantically involved with her The Voice co-star, Blake Shelton. Her first public foray into makeup is in 2016 when she released a limited edition cosmetic collection in collaboration with Urban Decay. That was well received. She also claims that it was around this time, so 2015 or so, when she describes her life as, quote, falling apart, that she first had the idea for Give. She filed a trademark for the brand in 2018, referring to her much publicized divorce from Gavin Rossdale. She revealed, I've prayed about this. I've wanted to pick up the pieces when my life and my family fell apart. When I had my thing that everybody knows about, I don't like to say the word, that unexpected tragedy, a lot of beautiful things came out of that, as they can if you work hard and you pray and you want that. Kind of a word salad, which happens frequently with her. But the idea, obviously, is that you can tell is from her divorce, even though it was unexpected and tragic, a lot of wonderful things came out of it for her. So she's been on and off The Voice as a coach for years now. She was featured on Shelton's single Nobody But You from his album titled, and you can't make this up, A Fully Loaded God's Country. And they released a song inspired by the pandemic, Happy Anywhere. So Give, her makeup line, launched in 2022. So we're talking, what is that, almost 30 years after No Doubt put out their first album. Almost every article you find about its launch has one thing in common, two things in common. One thing is they all use really terrible puns with her song titles. And two, every article talks about the fact that she worked at a makeup counter in a mall in her late teens. She says, quote, I was a makeup girl behind the counter for Borghese and Ultima 2. I had no training. They just opened it up and told me to make a display. And I was like, really? I'm in here now? Another quote she says about this time, quote, but I just really wanted to be the makeup girl. They all look so pretty and it all looks so fun over there. I knew I could do it, so I asked if I could be behind the counter, and they literally just put me behind the counter. They did not teach me anything or have me meet with a representative of the brand, nothing. And she says of that, basically all I did was put makeup on people who wanted samples and free makeup to go out that night. It was a really fun thing though, because what I loved about it was the feeling people would get from me when they were done, or they looked at themselves and said, I had no idea I was this pretty, or I didn't know I could look like this. The other thing she talks about often is that she did her own makeup for every performance while touring with the band. Another quote from her, for every show I've ever played live, I've done my own makeup. That's part of the ritual to become the person that needs to be out there. Getting ready is my favorite part. And both of those are true. I don't think we have any reason to doubt that she worked at a makeup counter and that she did her own makeup. It's also true that those stories were told over and over again to legitimize Give as a makeup brand. She does say the quiet part out loud at one point. She says, quote, "This is real. This is not another celebrity makeup line. I'm not a celebrity. I am Gwen Stefani from Anaheim. I've played in makeup my entire life. I've been obsessed with makeup my entire life." I appreciate there is a lot of self-awareness there that consumers, even 3 years ago, were exhausted by celebrity beauty brands. So by highlighting her love of makeup, she can make the case for why this brand is different. The other point that she uses for legitimacy or credibility is Stefani has always had like a super visual presence. You guys can probably like close your eyes and picture the platinum hair and the winged eyeliner and the bright red lipstick. It's pretty cohesive. It's something that she's had as a cohesive look for a lot of her career. And so it's a visual signifier. It's an iconic look that helped her stand out early in her career, and it helped launch Give. So Give, the brand, is a partnership with Nikki Aslami, who's a co-founder of Balami Hair Extensions, and New Theory Ventures, which is Aslami's venture capital firm that invests in early stage women-led projects. Wonderful. Stefani was said to have been heavily involved in building the company, including attending every product development meeting. The mission of the brand, as she states it, is, quote, "I want to create a community of makeup lovers like me." So Give launched at Sephora and on its own site in early March 2022. It had been in development for 4 years. It launched with a collection of 8 products intended to help buyers achieve Stefani's iconic look. There was eyeshadow, gel pencils, brow pencils, a hydrating face oil, and then there are 3 lipsticks: a matte lipstick, a satin lipstick, and a liquid matte lipstick. They were only in one shade though, so that kind of very iconic red lip was in all 3 of those shades. And prices range from $21 to $48. And the makeup boasts, kind of all of those things that we kind of expect now from celebrity brands, kind of table stakes, like clean ingredients, cruelty-free, vegan, all of that. One quote I found very interesting and refreshing from her about the launch. She said, "Starting a beauty line is quite scary in your 50s. It's like, okay, now I got to put my face out there more. But I don't care. I know that there are young girls that want to learn from me, that can learn from me. There are women that are my age and older that are going to learn from me, and this is my time to give back." Allegedly, the name Give stands for Gwen's, this is the quote, "generous sharing of beauty secrets with her fans." On the whole, the reviews are fine again for Give. The reviews note that the eyeshadow formulas are really pigmented, which some people like and some people don't like. Now, the red lips that the brand launched with were universally lauded. People really liked them. And they expanded the brand beyond the 8 initial products, adding to the colors of the lip products, lip pencils, more eye products, more face products. And Stefani did work really hard to legitimize herself as a makeup lover, creating something out of love and not simply to contribute to an already saturated market. In many ways, I think she succeeded. The comments on the YouTube review videos around the time of launch kind of back this up. Quote, "She's one of the only, if not the first, celebrity brand I'm not annoyed by. I have always liked her, and I do feel she's always been a makeup person with a signature look. I feel she does things with heart, and I support her in my heart, even if I don't feel the products are for me." Another quote, "Honestly, I think Gwen really nailed it. It's all classic Gwen Stefani, and I'm not mad at her for having a makeup brand because it just makes sense." Finally, quote, "What really impresses me with this brand is that, yes, it's another celebrity makeup brand. We all know we don't need more. But she really put in the attention to detail. Even if it is a money grab for her," and then in parentheses, "not sure that it is, she at least made it feel like she put effort into her products." The brand also worked really hard to build community, to build brand loyalty. 5 months after the brand launched, they introduced an interesting social component, Give Community, a digital platform where users can become brand ambassadors. givers, again, GXVERS. They can earn 30% commission from Give products sold via their personalized ambassador link. It did sound a little MLM adjacent to me, but I watched a couple of videos of people who signed up, probably with the same idea that this seems kind of scammy. And the consensus seems to be that there's nothing direct sales related. They do have perks when you sell more, but that's pretty standard in traditional retail. It feels more akin to influencer, like affiliate links, than an MLM pyramid scheme. So what I'm saying is we have this beloved icon, right, whose music really resonated with a generation of women, who has remained relevant for years, who's been in the public eye for 30 years now. We have someone who has also been known for her really iconic makeup look, who kind of laid the groundwork to promote herself as a makeup lover and tried with some success to position her brand as not just a celebrity cash grab. We have a tried and true marketing strategy, working with influencers by appearing on YouTubers like Patrick Starr's channel, along with really working to develop a community of micro influencers. And they launched with a kind of curated collection of products that were really well received. It feels like a winning strategy. And yet, 3 years later, if you look on Sephora's website, everything Give is half off. And I have a few theories on this. 1, I think the brand launched too late. 2, while the brand may feel like an authentic extension of Stefani, I don't feel that Stefani herself feels like a particularly authentic person. And that spelled trouble for the brand. And 3, it doesn't feel like her heart is anymore, which ultimately makes the whole endeavor feel like she's jumping on a bandwagon. So let's break those down a little bit. So she launched the brand too late. The brand was launched in a time of oversaturation of celebrity beauty brands that followed Rihanna's Fenty Beauty, and it could never fully differentiate itself. The packaging, the whole vibe was trying to latch on to this kind of 90s resurgence trend that we see in the early 2020s, but it missed the mark in some way. The packaging feels more Baroque than the kind of clean girl aesthetic we've seen become more popular in recent years. The brand seems to be aiming for a deep nostalgia by capitalizing on Stefani's past time in music, with many of the products named after her most iconic songs, but it didn't quite land with anyone who wasn't a huge No Doubt or Gwen Stefani fan to begin with. And some comments from various YouTube videos, again, like review videos, they highlight this. And just as an aside, as per usual, I'll put links to all the videos and all the articles that I've read below so that you guys can kind of do further research if you want to. But some of those videos from YouTube comments, quote, Stefani has always been creative, especially with her visuals. She even had her own fashion label. It makes sense that she's doing this. One thing is that she should have done it sooner. Another quote, I adore No Doubt. I wanted to be Gwen when I was younger and throughout high school. Her look was so iconic. The fashion choices, the different hairstyles, the makeup choices. I just wish she had done this years ago. Another quote, her makeup was so iconic. She should have jumped on this when celebrity brands started out a few years back. The timing does now feel cash grabby. One interesting point to note, all of the celebrity beauty brands I've talked about so far on this channel have sold out within a day, within minutes usually. But this brand never did. I do think that might have been a harbinger of what was to come. It never quite generated the excitement that other brands have. And it may have something to do with my point number 2, which is that Gwen Stefani doesn't feel like an authentic person. So we're going to get into this here. I want to talk about cultural appropriation because Stefani has been exploiting and profiting off of cultures that are not her own, which is, a white lady from Southern California, for decades. Starting with a bindi she wore all the way back in the 90s because she thought it was cool. Bindis are marks worn by South Asian women for religious and cultural practices. They're not simply like markers of coolness. She also wore saris while on stage at the time. And she was accused of cultural appropriation even way back then. And when she was accused, she said she wore both as a symbol of cultural exchange with her bandmate and her ex-boyfriend, Tony Cannell. And the idea of cultural exchange is going to be something she uses as a defense kind of repeatedly. In the 90s, she admittedly, along with many others, wore African Bantu knots, cornrows, other hairstyles that originated in the Black community. You may recall the time Stefani and the whole band thought it would be a good idea to dress up in Native American headdress and moccasins against a backdrop of teepees and mock powwows in their Looking Hot video. They knew enough to pull the video amidst the backlash at the time and gave an apology that was essentially like, we are a multiracial band, and so we wanted to celebrate other cultures. And they also said, like, we consulted with Native American friends and experts, but we're sorry that we offended you, and we are removing the video. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what it says. And then we have her most notorious phase of cultural appropriation, the Harajuku Lovers line in the middle of the Love Angel Music Baby debut of her solo album, excuse me, where she enlisted 4 Japanese American backup dancers to follow her on tours and events. She gave Maya Chino, Jennifer Kita, Rino Nagasone, and Mayuko Kitayama the stage names Love, Angel, Music, and Baby, respectively. You'll remember that the record was used as a tool to promote her apparel line, and she described as her fashion as kind of a combination between Christian Dior and Japan. The 4 women were featured in her music videos, in the press coverage of the album, and on the album cover for Love, Angel, Music, Baby, with a song named for and dedicated to them on the album. They were also featured in and the namesake for Stefani's Harajuku Lovers tour. Forbes magazine reported that Stefani earned $27 million between June 2007 and June 2008 for this tour, fashion line, and commercials, making her the world's 10th highest paid music personality at this time. Stefani will defend herself many, many times for this. She will say that she simply loves Japan and Japanese culture. In a 2023 interview with Allure magazine, Stefani stated that her father's job had him frequently traveling between California and Japan for 18 years. Speaking about her relationship with Japanese culture, she explained that, quote, "That was my Japanese influence, and that was the culture that was so rich with tradition, yet so futuristic, with so much attention to art and detail and discipline, and it was fascinating to me." She had visited as an adult and referred to herself as a super fan of Japanese culture. But there is a difference between appreciating and appropriating culture, and much of it comes down to personal gain. It is perfectly acceptable to admire another culture, whether for aesthetic or other reasons. But go learn about the culture, go visit, go promote understanding and tolerance. That doesn't mean it's okay to profit from another culture without understanding the cultural styles, the context, the meaning. By divorcing the many cultural styles Stefani co-opts from their significance, she ultimately turns those styles and those people who traditionally wear them into a fetish and erases their identity in the process while exploiting those cultures for economic gain. In a 2023 article to Allure, Dr. Khan, who's a co-director of the Asian American Studies program at the University of Pennsylvania, states, quote, "Simply put, cultural appropriation is the use of one group's customs, material culture, or oral traditions by another group." She said this raises 2 important factors to consider: commodification, making money, and an unequal power relationship. In this case, a white wealthy woman making money off of cultures that have had less power in the West. Another quote from her, "When a group has been historically marginalized or racialized by another group, the issue of power is central to cultural appropriation. The dominant group has the power to take or appropriate the marginalized group's customs and practices and gives these traditions meaning without the original context or significance." If you guys watched my video on Kim Kardashian, I touched on this a very little bit. Kardashian donned a costume of blackness for her own personal profit, and when it was no longer profitable for her, she was able to shed that costume. And Stefani does this over and over again with many different cultures. She has stated that she identifies as Japanese, and actually not just identified with, but was Japanese. Here's a quote from her. "I said, 'My God, I'm Japanese, and I didn't know it.'" The interviewer in that Allure magazine, by the way, who is Asian, said the quote, seemed to hang in the air between them before Stefani doubled down and said, I am, you know. In that same interview, Stefani commented that she was Japanese and identifies not just with Japan's culture, but also with the Hispanic and the Latin communities of Anaheim, California. Of this time, she says, during Love, Angel, Music, Baby, which was probably one of the most creative time periods of my life, I created 2 babies, 2 albums, 2 clothing lines. The output was shocking. I would come home with inspiration from the culture around me. And she defends herself again and again when confronted with her appropriation of other cultures. In a 2021 article in Paper Magazine, she said, quote, if we didn't buy and sell and trade our cultures in, we wouldn't have so much beauty, you know? We learn from each other, we share from each other, we grow from each other, and all these rules are just dividing us more and more. In that 2023 Allure interview, she says, quote, if people are going to criticize me for being a fan of something beautiful and sharing that, then I just think that doesn't feel right. I think it was a beautiful time of creativity, a time of the ping pong match between Harajuku culture and American culture. It should be okay to be inspired by other cultures because if we're not allowed, then that's dividing people, right? So she talks extensively about this concept that is valid, particularly for Japanese and American cultures after World War II, the idea of cultural exchange. And there has been plenty of healthy and not so healthy examples of cultural exchange between the US and Japan. I actually wrote my master's thesis in art history on a concept kind of surrounding this. And I remember reading a lot of this idea called transculturalization. And it refers to a flow of cultural material from one culture to another, with artists and writers kind of openly and enthusiastically exchanging ideas and materials. But there's a key word with all of this, and that is exchange. It's mutual. It's not meant, it was never meant for personal profit or gain at the expense of exploiting another community. And I go back to that Allure article from 2023 and think about a quote by the author. Her name is Jessa Marie Calor. Like Stefani, I am not Japanese, but I am an Asian woman living in America, which comes with sobering realities during a time of heightened Asian American and Pacific Islander hate. I am a woman who has been called racial slurs because of her appearance, feared for her father's safety as he traveled with her on the New York City subways, and boiled with anger as grandparents were being attacked and killed because they were Asian. I envy anyone who can claim to be part of this vibrant, creative community, but avoid the part of the narrative that can be painful or scary. I think about this other